Okay guys, this might seem a bit of an odd one, but I've had 3 or 4 requests for this. A spoon. I try and do everyone's requests, but time just doesn't always allow. But if I've had a lot of requests for one thing, I'll try and do it. So I'm going to make this today out of a bit of 3/8 stainless. No idea what grade it is because I bought it in a job lot, cheap, but it's pretty good stainless. It's non-magnetic, 3/8 thick. So we're going to get it hot, give it a go. The first thing we're going to do is neck it down, leaving about 7/8 of an inch, maybe an inch, over the edge of the anvil. You've seen me do this loads of times before. Do it on the square. Just leaving that lump on the end. I want to take it down to probably about half the thickness that it was. You can see there quite nicely what's happening. Again, I'm doing this over the rounded part of the anvil up this end, so I don't get a sharp shoulder. Same old story, don't work it cold, especially with stainless. You don't have to make this out of stainless. I'm just doing it because I've got some. If you're doing it out of mild steel, obviously it doesn't matter. But you don't want to work stainless cold. It will split much more readily than mild steel. And now I'm going to start rounding it off, so I'm doing it on the sort of the diamonds now. Keep going on the line that's formed. Each time you remove a line, you create another one. You just keep going round and round until gradually the lines disappear. And as it's getting colder, now you can start to remove your hammer marks. When you're doing this, you're not hitting very hard. You're just hitting quite gently as it's getting cooler, just to take out the hammer marks. You're not really working it. You're just literally removing those marks, and that's not too bad for starters. Obviously we'll finish it off afterwards. I'm going to start flattening the end out, the actual spoon bit. This is very much like making a leaf. If you've watched any of the leaf making videos, see now I've swapped over to the ball peen end. The only difference is you don't point the bit to start with, but it's basically the same sort of process. Using the ball again, just pushing it out from the centre all the way around. See how quickly it cools when it starts getting thin. Again, work from the centre outwards because you'll end up with a big lump in the middle otherwise. Pushing it out to the edges. You could probably do this like they do with the leaf with a cross peen, but I find ball peen much easier to control where everything goes. Might take a little bit longer, but you've got much more control. You might notice that right at the very end it's still rather thick. Don't worry about that because you can grind that off afterwards. Just trying to keep the shape of the spoon shape, and if you work on that end too much you'll end up with just a great big long thin thing. It won't resemble a spoon. Right, now I wouldn't normally do this over here. This is just gently dishing it over the pritchel hole. Your best thing would be to use a lump of hardwood. Just beat it into a lump of hardwood. This works, but unfortunately you'll get nasty marks on the base, which is why you can see there, nasty marks, which I really don't want. But as I say, I haven't got a lump of wood handy, so I'm just going to do it very gently just to get the start of the dish. I'm having to sort of think on my feet a bit because I haven't got all the right tools. So you can see there it's coming quite nicely into a dish. Right, well, this I came up with the idea. It's just a ball on the end of a lump of bar that I use in the fly press. It just happens to drop quite nicely into the hardy hole. And I'm going to work the spoon over the top of that to try and remove those nasty marks that I put in it around over the hardy hole, over the pritchel hole, sorry. Again, you can see how quickly this stuff cools. But it's doing the job. Not only is it smoothing the marks out on the back, it's actually smoothing the inside as well, taking those ball peen hammer marks out from the inside. This is a bit small really, this ball, but you can do it if you sort of work or move the spoon around. It's coming, we're getting there. Got to focus. There you go. And what I've suddenly remembered is I have a bigger one, again, that I use on the fly press. So this is much more suitable. I'm going to work it over this for a little while. You can see that actually fits much better on there. So you don't have to keep moving the spoon around, you can just hammer. Much more efficient, I suppose is the word. It's coming up quite nicely. Right, now I've cut it off just at a random length, no length in particular, and I'm a bit short time today, so I'm not going to do anything too fancy. I just want to put a bit of an end on it to make it look a little bit different or unusual or whatever you'd like to call it. And this stuff really is tough, so get the bigger hammer on it. Stainless really is pretty tough stuff to work. It's a bit like high carbon steel. It's that sort of feeling when you're working it. You know it's not mild steel. I've got that a little bit hot there. Consequently, I think my end's going to be a little bit frayed. Although stainless is good for heat resistance, it will burn. You can see the end's a little bit ragged. That's just because I just started to burn it. You've got to keep your eye on the job while it's in the fire, because especially once you've started thinning these things out, the thin end gets hot really, really quickly. Sometimes if you want to get the whole thing hot, it's best to quench the thin end, put it back in the fire, just so that you don't keep burning the thin end. I'm just starting to turn it round again, and working down the diamonds. Not doing a very good job of that, but it'll get there. You can see the material's moving and the hammer's basically standing still. It is moving a bit obviously, but the idea is you move the work under the hammer. Hammer just goes up and down, and you move the work. Much easier than doing it the other way around, keeping the work still and moving the hammer. Right, it's coming down, but still needs a bit of work. Now I'm just going to put a tiny little hook on the end of this. What I'm doing is making a bit like a shepherd's crook on the end. So I've just put a tiny little hook to start with, get it warm again, and then actually you can see I've cooled out the very end, because that's what I want to do. I want to hit it, and if you leave it hot you'll just completely muller it. So I'm not taking too much care with this. I'm short of time. I just want to get something made for you, so it's all a bit rough and ready today. And that's about it. I'm just going to put a bit of shape in it because it's a bit boring straight like that. There we go. I'll just put a little bit of shape down by the spoon end, and again up by the sort of top end, just so it doesn't look quite so plain. You can do all sorts to it. You can flatten the middle out, make it square and then twist it. Or you can do all sorts, whatever you like. Anyway, we're going to clean it up now. Start off with a flat disc. Just tidy up the basic shape of the spoon. This is what I was saying earlier, you can grind the fat bit off the very end so that it's thin all round. So that's not a bad shape. Now it's taking the sort of the ragged edge off. Tidied it up. Now I'm just going to go lightly over the whole thing, because as you can see, once you've worked a bit of stainless, it looks like a bit of mild steel because it goes scaly and black. And that's one thing you've got to be careful of when you're working stainless, not to let any slag or scale get hammered back into it. Really, you want to make sure you wire brush it every time it comes out the fire, so there's no nasties go back into it. Because when you polish it up, it'll show. You'll have big divots and lumps and black bits all over the place. So now I'm just going to go over the whole thing very lightly with my flat disc, just to take all the worst off. Obviously people have their own preference as to how they clean things up. I've got various different ways of doing these sort of things, but this is the one I've chosen today. Now this is the other tool I use a lot. Little air angle grinder, or angle die grinder, with a very coarse Rollock 3M disc on it, which are super tools. You can get in all sorts of little places with these things because they're flexible. Hope you can still hear me over the compressor. Just kicked in. I think actually this disc is a little bit coarse. I'm only trying this out because I've just got these discs. I normally don't use any quite so coarse. Now I'm going over with a very, very fine sandpaper. Again, it's like any of these jobs when you're polishing or cleaning anything up. You start off coarse, get finer and finer and finer as you go. And then finally you sort of polish with a mop and soap, as they call it. You can see how long-winded a lot of these jobs are. You see someone start a job and then they present it at the end all nice and shiny. It's actually not as simple as it looks. There's a lot of time goes into preparing these jobs, finishing them, that's the word. And that's roughly. I'm now going to I've put a smaller disc on now. Gone from the 50mm to the 38mm because I want to try and get in the dish of the spoon and get some of the rubbish out of there. It's really tricky, but these little Flexible discs are quite handy. As I say, I'm a bit short of time today, so I'm not going to spend too much on it, but you can see what's happening. Now this thing, I'm really not sure what it is. It's quite soft and flexible, but it's really quite abrasive. If you use it on a bit of mild steel, you get a lot of sparks off it. So it's obviously got quite a bit of grit in it. I buy it from one of my farrier suppliers for sharpening knives, but it's perfect for this sort of job. It really takes out those last fine little sanding marks. You can see just about it's really polishing it up quite nicely. Obviously there's still a long way to go with the polishing process, but it's just another tool in the arsenal to help make it nice and shiny. The only trouble is it does make it a bit hot. It's a bit tricky to hold on to. Anyway, nearly there with that one. Now we're going to swap it, once we've completed that, for the traditional, I think they call it, I don't know if they call it a sisal, woven sisal mop. This one's, I think it's about 8-inch. And I'm going to use the soap. The green one's not ideal, but the one I want, the grey, which is much coarser, I can't find. It's probably on the floor kicking about somewhere. But I'm going to start off with the green, because it's the coarsest I've got for the time being. You can see as soon as you touch it on that it's working. The colour goes. And again, it gets very hot. But you can't see it, won't quite focus. Seems to be focusing on that bit of pipe behind, but it's actually really shiny. So the whole thing's got to be done with this, and then I shall probably finish off with actually a white soap, which is a stainless steel soap. It'll take, as I said earlier, it's amazing how much work goes into finishing a lot of these products. See, now you can see it's focusing. That's really quite shiny. So we're going to carry on, see if we can get it all done. So I haven't got a lot of time, so there's not going to be masses of effort put into this today. Right, so I've had a bit of a go, got the worst of it done, and there you go. It's not perfect, but you get the idea. If anyone has got any requests, please let me know. I can't guarantee I'll get them done. Time is always difficult to find, but if I get, like this one, enough requests, I will certainly make the effort and try and do something. So I hope the people who requested this have enjoyed it, and we'll catch you on the next one, with any luck.